During the investigation on the Titanic shipwreck, researchers noticed a strange thing. At the bottom of the sea, the front part of the ship was in very good condition, while the back part was in very bad condition, and that too was 2,000 feet away. No doubt for 100 years, iron and steel rots while lying at the bottom of the sea. But if these two were part of the same ship and sank at the same time, then why was there such a big difference in the front and the back part? Researchers believe that on the night of the accident, apart from colliding with the iceberg, something else happened to the Titanic that caused more damage to its last part. But the question is, what was it? In 1912, the night the Titanic had an accident, it was 700 kilometers away from Newfoundland, Canada, in the middle of a dark sea. At the time of the accident, there were a total of 2,240 people on board, of which 1,500 people lost their lives. The ship that was known as the Unsinkable before the power of nature, it became the victim of the Black Sea. The eyewitnesses of this accident were only those who somehow got out of the ship and jumped into the cold water of the Atlantic Ocean. From the collision of the iceberg to the sinking of the ship, no one had a record of what happened except for those eyewitnesses who were busy fighting the cold water. The first rescue ship, RMS Scarpathia, also reached there after 1.5 hours of the sinking of the Titanic. It was also fortunate that they received an emergency message from the Titanic, otherwise the people who were fighting life and death in the cold water would not have survived, and no one would get to know about the incident of the Titanic till this date. During the investigation, no one knew what had happened to the ship, but then the survivors said that the ship had collided with an iceberg. These statements were also confirmed by looking at the Titanic's red paint on the iceberg, which was still fresh. After the accident, looking at the eyewitnesses and evidence, the investigation report said that on the right side of the Titanic, the iceberg had left a 300-foot hole. That is, a third of the entire side of the Titanic was torn. But on the other hand, the eyewitnesses said that it took about 2.5 hours for the ship to sink. Investigators believe that if the iceberg had really left a 300-foot hole on the Titanic, it would not have sunk in 2.5 hours, but in a few minutes. But no one could know what the truth was at that time. To know the truth, it was necessary to find the Titanic ship. The search for the Titanic continued for many years, and every passing year, this mystery became more and more serious. Finally, after 73 years, when the Titanic was found, it was a big breakthrough for the marine industry. It was time to find the answers to all the questions that the Titanic had left behind. In the 4,000-meter depth of the Atlantic Ocean, the Titanic's wreckage had been present in the black darkness for decades. Many expeditions were arranged that captured countless photos of the shipwreck. Oceanic explorer P.H. Nargiole has visited the Titanic more than 30 times, but he has never seen a 300-foot hole. However, in this profile photo of the Titanic, this 30-foot area shows that something had hit here. Its area is only 11 square feet. And according to calculations, 370 gallons of water could have accumulated in the Titanic every second. Filling water at this speed means that the whole ship would have filled with water in a total of 2.5 hours. And according to eyewitnesses, it took 2.5 hours to sink the Titanic. That is, a mystery has been solved that there was not a 300-foot hole in the Titanic, but only a 30-foot crack. But this was not the only mystery. There was still a lot to know. During the investigation on the Titanic shipwreck, researchers were not able to understand how the front part of the ship, which is called the bow, is in better condition than its back part, called the stern. And why is there so much distance between the two? To solve this mystery, high-tech sonar scanning technology was used. ROVs captured millions of photos and converted them into a 3D model. This model also contained all the details that a normal camera or human eye cannot see at this depth. It can be seen in the model that all the decks of the 392 feet long stern are inserted into each other as if it were a paper ship, not steel. Different parts are separated from the ship and scattered around it. There are only 2 engines the size of a house that are attached to it. Another important clue is also hidden in this model, the clue that tells us about the condition of the stern. When the stern collided with the ocean floor 110 years ago, its marks are still visible here, which can only be seen through a 3D model. These marks show that when the stern collided with the ocean floor, it was rotating anti-clockwise. Scientists can guess from these marks that the stern was surprisingly going into the water at a speed of 80 kilometers per hour. When the back of the ship was going so fast into the water, the forces generated by the water lifted the loose parts of the ship, and when it collided with the ocean floor 4 kilometers below, all its decks got stuck inside each other. On the other hand, as you can see, the bow section's design is hydrodynamic, which means it can cut water easily, just like a ship creates its path by cutting the water as it floats. This is the reason why the bow section was not rotating in comparison to the stern, and neither were the forces of water directly attacking it. Finally, another mystery of the incident that happened 110 years ago has been solved, but there is one more question that is very important to find the answer to. That is, when did the Titanic ship split into 2 parts? As you know, eyewitnesses reported that the ship split into 2 parts. It has been believed for years that the ship split into 2 parts. This news is true to a large extent, but it is not entirely true. When the bow section was flooded, it went underwater, which caused the entire weight of the stern section to fall on the pivot point, i.e. the center. This center point could not bear much weight and broke and split into 2 parts. But the 3D model made with sonar scanning tells a different story. Yes, if you look at it, all the equipment inside the Titanic is scattered all over the ocean floor. This includes coffee cups, dinner plates, chandeliers, deck benches, and people's personal belongings. 90% of these items belong to the stern section. A total of more than 10,000 items are scattered throughout this area, which makes up an area of about 3.2 square kilometers. If this section had separated from the bow section above the water, it means that as it reached the ocean floor, its debris would not have spread 3.2 square kilometers, but an even larger area, as you can see in this animation. Therefore, experts believe that this section broke above the water, but it separated from the bow section by approaching the ocean floor, and then while rotating, its direction changed and fell 2,000 feet away. Today, the body of the RMS Titanic is completely rusted. Scientists believe that oxygen is very low in this depth of the ocean, which makes the rusting process very slow. But when some samples of rust were taken out and tested, it was found that the rust was caused by the oxygen released from the bacteria. Experts believe that the speed at which it is rusting, all the floors of the Titanic will collapse on each other in the next few years, and then it will lose its original shape forever. I hope that you will like this video. See you in the next one.